All right. What's going on, everyone? Dr. Todd from Move Now University, and I'm here with a fairly recent friend, and I'm going to call him a good friend. I'm going to go out on that limb and say that he and I have become good friends, very soon to be great friends.
Absolutely.
Because I learned about Dr. Cronk's program from one of our Move Now doctors. He told me about it. I checked it out. Went through a lot of the material, said this is amazing. I definitely need to be doing this. Reached out to Dr. Cronk. He reached out to me like on New Year's Day or something. I don't remember what we talked, but so I realized right from the get-go, he and I have a lot in common. We both like to do a lot of work and get stuff done. And
Absolutely.
right. And so Dr. Cronk is on Florida time right now. It's 6:30 your time. You're probably ready to go home, but you stayed after so you could jump on a Facebook Live with us.
Oh yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good.
So
You
first off,
want to talk spine? You want to talk spinal injuries? I'm good. Let's go.
awesome. Cool. Well, thanks for doing that. Thanks for always being
Yeah,
so willing to jump on and do stuff in this
absolutely.
last several weeks since we started talking and we started using your stuff. So just a little backstory real quick, and then we'll just get right into it. Is this right here is our Move Now University page. So we have doctors on here that have followed our stuff that are not necessarily members. We have doctors that don't do any sort of functional rehab in practice at all. We have some that don't do personal injury. Some do. I mean, there's such a wide variety of doctors on here.
Absolutely.
This will be shared in our groups as well, which are for our members. And so there's a variety of audiences. And the main thing that I wanted to do here is get more awareness of Dr. Cronk's program called SmartInjuryDoctors, because it's one that we're using in our practice. And so far it's been amazing, and we're only using a small percentage of it. And I think it's going to be beneficial for all chiropractors who want to do better work for their patients, whether they're doing injury work or not. And so with that said, I'll turn this over to Dr. Cronk so he can tell a little bit more about how he got into this, who he is, and then we're going to dive into some cool topics that he's going to share. And this is really here so that we can bring more awareness to a webinar that we're going to do this Saturday morning. Okay.
Yep.
So this Saturday morning, there's going to be a webinar we're going to do, cover some good topics. With that said, Dr. Cronk, take it away.
Yeah, Todd, thanks for inviting me on. You and I have a lot in common. I knew that right away. And the biggest point of commonality is wanting to help people. I've always wanted to help people. I've always wanted to be a good chiropractor. I wanted to be a good doctor. I wanted to get people out of the situation, patients out of the situation they're in as quickly as possible. Spent a lot of time, 17 years in private practice. I was in the rooms over 175,000 times, over 6,000 new patients. So I spent a lot of time in the trenches in private practice, and I migrated. I think all practitioners sort of, at first you treat everything, and you treat a kind of a hodgepodge of, hey, I do Medicare, I treat older patients, I treat patients that are 75 years old and don't have a lot of time left, and to try to make changes in those patients is more difficult. So you start to migrate to, what do I want to treat? What do I like to treat? At least that's where I got to. And I liked injury work. A lot of people like injury work because of the money, and the money is fantastic. Don't get me wrong. The money's amazing. The reason why I liked injury work is because an injury patient only has a 50% chance by research. I don't care what you read, some higher, some lower, but about a 50% chance of fully recovering. I liked that as a doctor. I wanted to be that doctor that was responsible for that husband, that wife, that child, that teenager, that person that somebody cares for, loves, and doesn't want to have them, have pain for the rest of their life. So I wanted to be that doctor. I wanted to be that good. I wanted to continuously strive. I continuously educated myself. And so that's how I got into injury work. The other thing I loved about injury work is you don't have to talk to patients about money. So you get to do, as a doctor, you get to do anything you want to do within reason. Some people take that out, when I say that too far, but I got to do anything that I wanted to do that I thought the patient needed to have done in order to improve their chance of a full recovery. Full recovery means no chronic pain, no duties under duress, no loss of enjoyment of life factors, no activities of daily living negatively interfered with, no job activities negatively interfered with. Whether it takes you 3 months, 6 months, a year, I don't really care. That patient, as they roll off the end, you want them to be as good as they can. That's one of the reasons why I think you and I connected so much with you, is because I teach diagnostics. I teach a niche. I teach you how to dominate a niche, to differentiate yourself in a niche. And it's a niche that's empty. There aren't any competitors in the niche, that spinal ligament injury niche. As you come on and you start going out to attorneys and you use it as a way to separate yourself, you're going to see there's no one in that niche. As you go out to doctors and go, okay, can you simply determine the severity and location of a ligament injury? You're going to see what I saw years ago was, kind of a deer in the headlights look, or the authoritative, absolutely I can. How do you do it? I do it through orthopedic testing. Great. What orthopedic test tells you that? There isn't one in the world that tells you that. Oh, I do that through examination procedures. Good. There isn't one that tells you that. So it's a combination of imaging with those examination procedures. So, what for me, it was the fact that that's how I got into it. Now, I got into a lot of other things. I got into developing national ligament testing services. I got into developing the platforms behind it. Currently, we're involved with development of artificial intelligence to actually make routine intersegmental motion testing, how much ligament damage, how much intersegmental slippage there is, a standard. It should be in 5 years, 10 years. There's not an imaging center in the world that takes stress radiology that doesn't have a readout of what's going on intersegmentally. So that's kind of been my area. That's been my passion. I got infected with that condition about 1995. I've never been able to cure it. And so that's pretty much been my passion. And so, I love talking about it. And I developed a program. I developed a training program for doctors to simplify the process, to get rid of the crap. One of the things that's interesting that I found is, and I'm just going to use an example, and hopefully the people on this broadcast will understand what I'm talking about, but there are a lot of so-called experts, and you can have an expert engineer that teaches other engineers. Matter of fact, he's a professor. He's read every book on engineering there is. He can quote everything there is to know about engineering, blah, 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 blah. And he teaches engineers who are going to go out and build a bridge. Now, the professor, the so-called expert, has never built a bridge, never even been on a bridge site, but he's an expert. Right now, the true expert has built 5 major bridges. Matter of fact, he built the San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge. He built the floating bridges in Washington State. He's built 5, 6 major bridges. That expert knows that 95% of that whole educational process was not necessary. That data is insignificant. It's not really necessary to know in order to build a bridge. So one of the things that I try to do with this program is get it down to very basic things that you need to know. And for some doctors, they're like, oh, this is too simple. The power is in the simplicity of it.
Yeah, because if it's simple, then you go talk to attorneys, they understand it. They get it right away. And so on this Facebook Live, something that you and I were talking about beforehand, we're saying, what would be the most impactful thing to be able to share with someone and get them really intrigued with this and get the gears turning? And I said, well, how about we talk about a recent success I had, which was about 3-4 weeks ago. I did a online call with an attorney. So he was at home. It was, it was kind of like on an off day. He wasn't in the office. So he's kicked back. We're relaxed. And I shared a screen and I went through your PowerPoint presentation. I changed some of the slides to make it specific to our practice.
Sure.
But I really,
what you're supposed to do.
Yep. But I was sharing the whole meat and potatoes of the fact that you're basically teaching them that MRI is not this almighty God that all these people think it is, and that there's a lot of stuff that's missed in MRI, and the importance of stress films and looking at alteration of motion segment integrity. And side note, before we jump into there, something that I gravitated towards so quickly as going through your videos and starting to go through your training program is that one is that you've been a practicing chiropractor for what, 17 years? Is that how long it was? 17?
Practicing 30 years I've been licensed. So I was in clinic for 17. Yes.
Okay, so 17. Then you went to law school, became an attorney.
Yes.
Okay, so chiropractor and attorney, and then you built a program for chiropractors. You have a program that educates also lawyers called Smart Injury Lawyers.
That's correct.
And then there's this whole slew of stuff that you make. This is what's really impressive too, is all of this printed work that you make is really valuable, because this is the stuff that you give to us. I went and had a bunch of these printed out.
Right.
We have a marketing liaison that we just brought on. And she goes out and she uses this to build these relationships. And ultimately, the story that I want to tell is that there is an attorney that we talk to. We impress them so much with what we do and the work that we're doing, following how you've set it up as far as spinal ligament injury testing, having a unbiased third party measuring it over at Spinal Kinetics. Yep. And he loved that whole thing. That was 4 weeks ago. He's already sent us 2 patients.
Right.
Okay. And so we fast tracked this process as far as building a relationship. So I said, okay, if that works with one, let's do this with many. And now we're starting to scale up, and I'll be sharing the successes we have with that as well. But something I pull up on my screen, Dr. Cronk, I have kind of like mid slide of this exact PowerPoint presentation. I figure I can bring it up and then just have you walk through a couple of the slides. You can tell me which ones you think would be most compelling to go to in maybe the next 5 or 10 minutes.
Well, I'll tell you what, that's fine. We can do that. It's just, you're kind of like, what'll happen is we'll cut to like a 2-minute segment within a short movie. It's a pretty short movie, and try to take a 2-minute segment. Let me just tell you that PowerPoint that you're going to show, so you could show whatever slides you want to show.
Okay.
I'll tell you a story how that actually occurred, or what occurred. So I've been developing 2 spinal ligament testing companies. Back in 2005, I decided that I, as an individual, was going to change the way the world worked up spinal ligament injuries, and that I was going to create a movement that would universally change it. And once that change occurred, where every single set of stress x-rays came out with an intersegmental motion read, that I would be done. That was my mission. That's what I decided I was going to do. So I've been out. I've been teaching attorneys. I taught attorneys for 2 years classes before I realized they didn't know what a ligament was. So I was way over their head. I thought I was teaching in kindergarten, and I kept needing to undercut and undercut and undercut and undercut. So I'm up in Minnesota at an MRI center. There's about 150 doctors. They had personal injury seminars going on, and they had a personal injury lawyer there. And so I thought, okay, usually when I go and speak on I think they gave me 2 hours or 3 hours. Sometimes I'll listen to the guy that's right before me, because I'll start to tie this information in with whatever he's saying. I don't care if it's functional medicine, if it's functional exercise, if it's attorneys, if it's radiology. This subject ties in because it's a basis for it. It really is a basic on all these subjects. So anyway, I'm sitting there, and this attorney's going, oh my God, he's going on and on and on about mechanism of injury. Oh my God, the biggest thing to document is mechanism of injury. He says it for about 30 minutes. And I'm thinking to myself, sitting in the back, God, it says on the form work injury, or it says on the form auto injury. I mean, it's documented right on the form. 30 minutes for mechanism of injury. So at the end, he says, what's the most important thing? And chiropractor raises his hand, said mechanism of injury. And this is how long ago this was. He pulls out a brand new MP3 player when MP3s were, so however long ago that was, 7 years, 8 years, whatever it was. So he throws out this MP3 player to this chiropractor. And I mean, I have been around, and I don't think that chiropractors should be degraded. Now, that attorney never would have did that to a medical group. So I was like, all right, that's a little cheesy. When he asked the next question, what's the worst thing a chiropractor can do? And nobody answered the question. He pulled out behind the podium a can of Campbell's soup, as if that was funny. And he meant canned documentation. Well, canned documentation is normal it's normal in PT. It's normal in in medicine. It's normal in dentistry. It's normal all over the place. So I was kind of, I don't know, Todd, if you ever had a day where you were a little cranky.
Sure.
I came into this thing a little cranky, and I'm normally not cranky. And when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, you could have put a needle in my neck and it would squirt blood across. So I raised my hand, which I never do. And I said, you've been sitting here talking to these doctors for 35, 40 minutes now about mechanism of injury. What is mechanism of injury? And he said, what do you mean? I said, what is it? You're an expert in it. You've been saying it's the most important thing to document it. What actually is it? And he's like, well, it's what you guys were taught it was. Oh, typical attorney. Deflect. No. I don't want what we think it is. I want to know what you as an expert think it is. I wanted to show 150 doctors on the podium on that stage that day that this particular guy did not know what he was talking about. And that everything that he just said, and this belittling of throwing out a gift and cans, documents, and like it was, and I was cranky, right? So I go up on stage after him, and he recovered, and I let him recover. So I go up on stage afterwards, and I think, oh my God, these doctors have been to Art Croft, they've been all over the place. They're not understanding mechanism of injury. And all of a sudden, a light bulb went off. I owed this guy like a ton because he agitated something where all of a sudden I realized, oh, okay, I'm teaching about ligament injuries, and the doctors don't know what the injuries look like. So mechanism is the force delivery system, whether it's a dog, whether it's a work, it's an auto collision. I mean, if you fracture your leg in a car accident, it's called a car injury, auto injury. If you fracture your leg at work, it's called a work injury. If you fracture it in a sports collision, it's called a sports injury. It's the same fracture. So mechanism is the force delivery system. The injury is always the derangement of the body part that's left behind. So you have the force and the derangement, the force and the derangement. And I thought, oh my God, this is going to make talking about ligament injuries so much easier, because the attorneys don't know if I shoot you with a gun, there's a gunshot wound. If I just scratch your shoulder, it's a scratch. If I put a bullet through the middle of your shoulder, it goes through the middle of your shoulder. Now, if a doctor comes in and says, geez, I don't know what happened to you, you're probably with the wrong doctor. If you have a dog that bites you and it's a dog bite, and the doctor comes in and says, geez, I've never seen anything like that, probably the wrong doctor, right? So spine injuries always cause a derangement to the spine. You can't injure the spine without deranging it. And it deranges in very predictable patterns. And those predictable patterns make it very easy to determine the severity and location of the injury itself. So that particular thing is what I teach. And then that concept is so simple, but it's one that you'll use over and over. If you're smart, you'll use it over and over and over again, because it makes it so simple for the attorney to understand, because they don't know that an injury is a derangement of a body part. Impossible to injure a body without deranging it. They don't know what one looks like. And guess what? Neither does the IME doctor that they're deposing. Neither does the defense expert that they're deposing. I don't care how many medical things they have behind their name. In general, if you had a dog bite specialist up and said, what does a dog bite look like? He'll describe it in great detail. If you put a spine specialist up and say, what does a spine injury look like? You'll see them deflect. Oh, they can look like many things. And be like the dog bite guy saying, oh, yeah, a dog bite can look like many things. It has a very specific look to it. And once you understand it, it will change the way you look at everything, because I don't care. You said when we started, hey, this is for functional rehabilitation people. First of all, functional rehabilitation doctors have a major head start. The doctors that are in your program have a major head start in the injury market. You guys that have this specialized education are born to be in the injury market, because the injury market needs a doctor that can get great results, and that will improve your results regardless of your technique. So, so basically the injury market itself needs that level of doctor. So you also what I also realized in private practice, and anybody that understands injury understands chronic pain, because the thing that causes acute pain causes chronic pain. And so what happened for me is the more I understood trauma and ligament damage and injuries, the more I understood subluxation, misalignments of the spine. If I went to correct them, I understood the correction things that I was. So all the data aligned, and it just kept getting better and better and better. And my ability to handle a patient, predict the patient's outcomes, if you're trying to correct a spine, predict their outcomes, predict the things that they are going to run into, and the better you get at it. Which, here's the thing, and this is something I learned: you can't be good at something you do occasionally. You cannot become a professional at something you do occasionally. You have to do professionalism, and competency comes with consistency. What you do consistently. Todd, you teach and do physical rehab consistently. You'll know it inside and out. And all of a sudden, it's like hitting a baseball. You don't even have to think about it anymore. At first you got to think about your swing, what you're doing, blah, blah, blah. So the nice thing about injury work is even if you just studied injury work and you said, hell, I never want to be, for whatever reason, I don't like attorneys, I don't want to be in that thing, you'll understand your chronic pain patients way better, because that's what they're suffering with. So, that was kind of a long answer to what you were saying, but that's how I came across mechanism of injury. And when you do an attorney presentation, they don't know what the injuries look like. So they don't know there's two imaging findings, excessive motion and MRI, and that the MRI, you're not going to run it down, but the MRI is not designed to find the most problematic condition. It's just not designed to find it.
Right. Yeah, cool. So I know there's definitely more that we could talk about right now, but the intention of this was to raise awareness that we're going to do a webinar on Saturday.
Yep.
And on Saturday, what we'll do is it'll be going through, showing slides, showing some of the how, and actually answering some of these questions. Hopefully there's some curiosity started from here of people thinking, well, how do you diagnose a spinal ligament injury? And how do you actually do an exam on a patient to correlate these findings together? And how do you then document that? And how do you have really compelling documentation that solidifies a case that attorneys are looking for and yearning for, and you just hand it to them on a silver platter? That's the stuff that this Saturday we're going to be talking about. And then a side note is, everyone out there, first thing that Dr. Cronk told me when I was talking on the phone, because I reached out to him, I said, hey, Dr. Cronk, this program you have there's so much stuff that you put in this, and it's priced very, very, very low. And he said, yes, I'm well aware of that. And the price is going to be going up to really where it should be priced at. And that's been delayed a little bit, which is lucky for all of you. But there's now a hard date on that as far as when it's going up. And it's March 8th, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
So March 8th, it's going up, and it's going up to what it is rightfully should be charged. I mean, there's so much stuff in this. I've looked at other programs and things that people have put together, and I know how much we charge for our program.
Yeah.
And I know how much work and stuff we put inside of ours. And I think ours is very, very competitively priced. Like we could charge way, 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 way more.
Exactly.
And,
I do too.
Yeah. And your program is the first one I've come across where I'm like, man, you also provide that. You're giving away that. You put all the marketing stuff together. You put all the staff training together. There's stuff you can post online, social media. There's all the doctor training. There's all the forms. It's so all inclusive.
Thank you.
That right now, something I wanted to do for our doctors that we work with is make sure that for those who are interested in it, which I know there's going to be plenty, that they at least get it screamed in front of their face so they know, hey, look, do something now. Even if you're not in a position to launch it right now, the way you have it set up right now is they can get into it, have lifetime access, so they can just jump into it whenever they're ready to get it going, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Correct.
Because on the same note, something that you don't want, neither do I, is for people to get a program and never use it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely not. But, kind of the thing that you just experienced, right? You went out, you did an attorney presentation, you got 2 injury patients from it. So, doctors will ask me, well, what's the ROI? What's the ROI on this? And it's like, I say, oh, double. You'll make an extra $1,000 in your life. That would be double the price, right? That'd be 100% return. And that's like, oh, you'd spit. Now, if you could go to the stock market and get 100% return on your money, you would sell your house to go get the money, right?
Right.
So, if you said, all right, geez, we got an average of $20,000 worth of patients there, what's the return on the investment? So, and the other thing with this, you're right. I mean, we're raising the price. I'm raising it significantly. And the ROI is like off the charts. But right now, we open it up and we said, all right, we're giving all this lifetime. So lifetime upgrades, lifetime, you don't ever pay another cost, one fee. And we're only doing that because we've been building out, and I'm sure, as you can appreciate, Todd, we're building out a funnel. Doctors, if you're on right now, on the 9th of March, you'll probably see my program stalking you on the internet, right? All right. You'll see ads. You'll see ads all over the place for it. So, what you want to do, if you want to get on a webinar on Saturday, good. Get on the webinar on Saturday. If you say, hey, this is something I want to get into, good. Hit the link that Todd's going to give you. Go buy the program. Yeah. Because there's no way that you can lose with this program if you just apply some of it. I mean, one of the things that I say, and you can cut me off whenever you want to, I can go all night.
That's okay. Keep going.
Yeah, no, is that, doctors will say to me, well, I don't really have much of, I don't really know how to market injury patients. I say, all right, great. Well, how many patients in your database? Around 5,000. I say, okay, 5,000 in your database. That's nice. Are you aware that you have 550 around injury incidents in that database every year? No. Okay. Well, if you started promoting, this is just one. There's so many ways, but if you just started promoting to your people that you do injury work, you're going to increase your injury work. So there's so many ways. And I don't care where you are. I mean, I have a doctor in this program that sees around 500 injury patients a month. He does not a single doctor. He has probably 4 or 5 doctors. They see a large volume of personal injury and injury patients. So, and then all the scale, doctors that are seeing 20 to 40, doctors that are seeing 40 to 60, doctors that are seeing 10 to 20, doctors that are just getting involved and they're not hardly seeing any.
Yeah. And also too, something that I would like to say on this, for those of you who are joining us now, go back and start and watch this at the very beginning. But main thing of where I'm coming from, where Dr. Cronk's coming from, which is another reason why his stuff resonated with me so much, is that first and foremost, it is clinical excellence. It is getting the absolute best results for your patients, which is such a great thing for your patients. Obviously, it's a great thing for you as a doctor and your clinic, because it builds a tremendous amount of confidence that's actually based on results. It's based on actual stuff that you can show someone. And then when you provide a higher level of care, and this is what we always say to all of our doctors,
totally,
providing a higher level of care, you rightfully should be reimbursed more because you put more time and energy and expertise into it, and you're doing something that not everyone else is doing. And so, like a few weeks ago, you had me on in front of your group talking about functional rehab.
Totally.
And it's because if someone's doing injury work and wants to get the best results of the patient, they need to be doing corrective exercise and functional rehab. On the flip side, if you have this formula put together like we do inside of Move Now University, where you have all the moving parts, you have all the things that engage the patient, get them excited, you have the best evidence-based protocols, and it's all put together like perfect, why not capitalize on the injury market, where you have all these attorneys in your community that are likely sending, in most cases, to the chiropractor who's just willing to cut their bill. And that's the way they built their relationship, where you could go in there and say, okay, look at me, I'm over here, and here's why we can do a better job for your client, and we can build a tremendous amount of more value for this case, not for the sake of driving it up as far as cost of care, because ultimately it's actually saving a lot of money cost of care, because you're
Correct.
saving these people from having to do nerve ablation and possible surgery and like all
Absolutely.
these things that are so much more. But then knowing how to identify, is there some sort of spinal ligament injury that has a sense of permanency that can then relate into what settlement that patient has coming to them because of the extent of their injury, right?
Totally. I mean, there's such a nice way to say that too. And I learned it through the AMA guides and reading through all this stuff and geeking out on this stuff. But the doctor's job is to provide documentation that allows the patient access to any benefits they're entitled to.
I'm gonna type that in the comment sections.
Yeah.
Doctor's job is to what?
It is to document in a way that allows the patient access to any benefits they're entitled to. So I learned a long time ago in the injury market, I'm not the one doing the adjudication of, look, you got personal injury, you got attorneys, you got one side fighting, this side trying to save money, this side try to get money. And I had to be the doctor. So I realized a long time ago, I'm not a patient advocate. I'm not an attorney advocate. I'm not an insurance advocate. I'm a clinical rationale and clinical results advocate. That's where I stay. That if you want to navigate the shady side, or you want to navigate, the personal injury market, the murky areas of the personal injury market, if you can get results and that's what your focus is on, your focus is on that, you can go right through the personal injury, not have the reimbursement issues, not have the issues, because that's what your focus has got to be on. And you're right. That's why I did resonate with you as well, because that was your, you can put a person through physical rehab. Like I look at it, Todd, and I'm kind of weird in this way, but I look at it and say, look, if you look out at 100 people and you know that 50 of those people are never going to fully recover, and that 30% of that 50% are going to have significant lifelong problems with their condition, and you as a doctor could do a better job because you know where they're going. They don't know what the diagnosis is. They don't even know what the injuries really are. If you ask them, what the hell does the injury even look like? They couldn't tell you, right? They're doing very generalized care on it. They're not doing physical rehabilitation. And you see that group of people and you go, well, gosh, I don't know. Maybe I should help. Maybe I should not. I looked at them and said, no, I got to help them. Because again, I know it's kind of weird, but if a woman comes in and she's in an auto accident, she has headaches and she's got severe headaches, right? She's got 3 kids and a husband. Well, if those severe headaches continue and let's say she goes chronic with the headaches, the marriages can be affected. The kids can be affected. The whole family unit itself is affected. So I used to think about stuff like that.
Yep.
And go, and then as you get kids, like you have young kids, right? As you get kids, you get cursed with oh my God, I love them so much that if anything happened to them, so you're kinking your armor. I remember, I had a baby. I used to jump out of airplanes and go to rugby matches and, break my collarbone and go, ha, 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 and do all this stuff. Now I heard my first child and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, you got to protect this child. So think of your own child being in college or whatnot, getting injured, being, 1,000 miles away from your clinic. They can't treat at your clinic, but now you got to find somebody. Well, the somebody that you got to find should be the somebody that's like you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Where you just go, oh my gosh, this is that's how I approached practice. That's how I approached private practice. That's how I approached our diagnostic testing. That's how I approached this program. That's how I approach healthcare. An injury patient, you'll hear me say this, if anybody ever sees me speak on stage, an injury patient should be with doctors that are at the front of the bell curve, not in the middle of the bell curve, and certainly not at the back of the bell curve. The risk is too high for long-term problems. So they should be at if they're going to locate a doctor, they need to be, now for granted, patients don't take a lot of time to study the doctors before they go to a doctor, but they need to be at the front of the bell curve if they have an injury like this.
Right. And that's something that the attorneys and the medical clinics that are seeing injury cases and saying, we don't really take personal injury cases, go to this physical therapy place or go over here. Those two should be educated about this, because they don't know either. And so that's where that's another thing inside of what you built that is so powerful, is you have PowerPoints on how to go and talk to the attorneys, how to go and talk to medical doctors, their PAs, all of that stuff, which is just, that's the stuff that we're going through right now, and we are executing, and we're starting to already see the fruit. And something that I was also excited about was just because something that I'm always trying to do inside my group is get more of our doctors to implement these systems further and further and further. And I know that if they can see that at the very least in their personal injury work, if they can get this stuff implemented and put in place and see how beneficial it is for the patient, how well received it is from the attorney or the referring doctor, that could light a fire under them to say, hey, this could be a way to grow the personal injury side of my practice, which we all know has all the benefits that you talked about in the very beginning, is that you don't have to talk about money with a patient. You don't have to be held hostage by some kind of private health insurance company that's cutting everything down.
Right.
Sure, there's certain things to know about in personal injury, but that's a lot that you cover inside your program as well. So, I mean, it really well equips someone who is either, I feel like, a veteran in the personal injury work, or someone who's maybe only doing like 5% in their practice, like we were primarily,
right,
and wanting to do a higher percentage of that, which is what we're working towards right now.
Yep. Yeah. So. Oh no, it's here's the thing too. Like when I think of you, and I already know this, right? I'll use the old cliche. Hey, I want to teach you how to fish with. I don't want to teach you. I don't want you to be needy of constantly asking me questions. Hopefully in this program, you'll start to go, okay, I really understand this. Then you'll take the information and I'll say, hey, I'm really good with getting at attorneys, and I am. Teach you how to fish. And all of a sudden I'll look over in the pond and go, damn, I'm sitting in a wood boat fishing and thinking I'm catching a hell of a lot of fish. And all of a sudden I see you in a top streamlined, bass boat going, hey, look at what I got. Look what I did with this portion of the program. And that's what, like, I have doctors in this program right now that are pitching to hospitals their clinic systems to be purchased out or to be part of their outpatient facilities that the hospitals are looking to do, because when the patients come into the hospitals in the emergency rooms, they're starting to understand that if they control the entities that were treating them, even though they don't treat them, that there's a lot there. So this information, this simple information, is what you go to a hospital administrator with. That you go, okay, yeah, they got spinal instabilities, and that you don't have any way of determining that right now. And it's very easy to go in and talk about. And they, if you went in and said spinal subluxation, don't know what that is. If you went in and said, biomechanic lesions of the spine, that's still a little too kind of hazy. So it's very easy to go in.
It's a spinal ligament injury.
Yeah, for me, it's just very easy to go in, and I don't care if it's a hospital administrator, a neurosurgeon, an orthopedic surgeon, a doctor of chiropractic, a doctor of physical therapy, an osteopath. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah, no, it's great. So look, let's do this. I know it's later on your end, and we got stuff.
Yeah, no, that's fine. You cut me wherever you want to cut me.
I just think on Saturday what we can do is really dive deep into this. So for those of you who have just heard about this for the very first time and they say, yeah, I'm kind of interested, I want to learn some more stuff. Great. Come on Saturday, watch what Dr. Cronk and I are going to go through. It's going to be primarily him going through it. I'm just going to come on, do the intro and let you go. And for those of you who've been following what we're doing already, I put all the links up in the comment section so you have them so that you can see, one, how we do the webinar on Saturday, and two, I put a link for a checkout where you can join and jump into the program and get access to it right now and start going through it. Either way, our plan is to do the webinar Saturday, And March 9th is when this goes up to its regular pricing, which is significantly higher than where it's at right now.
Yeah, it'll be a 400% increase.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll go up.
And with that said, if you have any questions, you can reach out to me in the meantime. Appreciate you joining us, whether you're watching this live or on a replay. We'll see you on Saturday. And that's all I have to say. Is there anything that you want to say on the way out?
No, just thank you. Thank you for taking the time and listening to me.
Cool. Yep. Thank you as well. All right.
All right.
We'll see you on Saturday.
All right. Good night.